Proven.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for my tardiness.
No, my turn.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let me come up
Good
this.
afternoon.
Good afternoon. All right. Everybody had a wonderful week. Why everybody gone so quiet?
I was stressed out. I was traumatized from the war start. I'm a crybaby, so I've been crying for days now.
Why?
Cause I keep thinking that those are people, like they acting like they ain't people, like they're not real people they were dealing with when you listen to the newscast. And they're just so casual.
They're at war?
Yeah, people getting killed though.
Yes.
Suppose somebody did that to us. Like, what would
Well-
we do?
This is a war and this is a different. You'll have to see. I mean, what much could we do until they ask some of our young men to volunteer?
Ain't nothing we could do really. But watch the
None.
fireworks, unfortunately.
Yep. Nothing we can do at all. I'm trying to find my homework. How did homework go? Oh, that don't sound too good. Why doesn't that sound good?
I need clarity. Was the homework you sent done due for this Saturday or the next Saturday? Because I think last class we were saying we were going to do that for the other Saturday.
No. Last class, we agreed that homework was for this week. For what I sent would have been on the chapter on shares. And it's due today. Today,
But that chapter 6?
yes, chapter 6, I think it was.
I
Yes.
thought the midterm was due today.
Yeah, of course it is. But you had the midterm for a while.
Oh, so both were due today.
Of course, we agreed. Remember, the agreement was you all would not do homework for units 6 and 7 together. I said I will send 7 today, so you could turn it in next week.
Oh, see, that's where the confusion came in.
Yeah, I think that's where I came in because I was under the impression that that was due on the 6th.
Okay, but don't worry about it. You can write it out, but we'll discuss it today. How about that? That'll still work. Pull it out while I.
Can
Okay.
we also discuss the midterm? Whether, not discuss the questions, but discuss turning it in?
You mean due date? That's not a problem.
Can we discuss concessions?
What you mean?
It's due on the 26th. Today, all day is the 26th until 11:59 p.m.
Yeah, but I don't, if you think you need more time, then you tell me.
I think I need more time. I think
Yeah.
I need more time. If I'm gonna make this nice, I would need more time because I just feel like I have just thrown a lot of information at the paper and I want to really oscillate my thoughts well enough to be a nice practical 5 responses.
Okay, see, 'cause I
Also,
don't-
was there any errors on the midterm given? For example, the question 8 for number 4.
8 for now, but I don't have it in front of me.
Well,
I'll
it
write it.
says advise Roscoe Foods Limited on its liability to Roscoe Foods Limited. You mean to Corpus Limited?
Columns should have been the second one. I actually sent an
When I
email
submitted
on
mine,
that,
I changed it to
but I
Corpus.
changed it.
Yeah, I changed mine when I submitted it.
Yeah, I changed it.
I'm looking for my homework questions. Hold on. Where did it just, oh, I think I found it.
I thought that was correct, the statement, but I don't know.
Okay,
Uh,
but if you have submitted it and you wanted to stay, then fine. If you wish to withdraw, then just send an email on top of it and say withdraw. I'll give you until the final exam is March 26th. So the latest, let's see if we could push this, would be, today's the 26th, right?
Correct.
The latest
Yes.
would be the latest you can hold on to that midterm would be the 12th. I need it before the 12th.
Oh, you're a dog.
This particular paper, you can take it on the 12th.
No, I'll take it over on the 12th,
Okay,
the
all right.
midterm.
That's
Okay,
great for me.
so- Okay, so I sent an email last night, so I will withdraw.
Just send me a note, say withdraw,
Okay,
and then redo it. So I actually I will not pull them until the 5th of March or the 12th. Which one you want?
For me, the 5th is fine, because the 12th is a lot of time. That's great. And I guess you can take more time to do it really well. But the 5th for me personally is okay. But the
Okay,
others may want to
The
have.
12 is good for me. If I can get it out to you before then, I'll do so.
Okay, well,
Okay.
same for me.
The 12th, I think the 5th.
Yeah,
Miss, you send yours on the 5th. I will send mine on the 12th.
no, I think the 5th, because don't forget now, we still have like 2 homework assignments and we need to still start on the capstone. So you still
So
can't.
you have, yes,
push
you have all
everything
of
to the
those,
end.
you have all those things to do, but that doesn't change today.
Right, I will take the 12th.
Okay.
So I will
let's-
work before the 12th, but 12th is good.
Right. So I will, on the 12th, I will print whatever I have, and that's what I will mark. So there shouldn't be anybody late on the 12th. So on that last day of class, when I say, this is what's coming on the final, this is this and this is that, when I finish, I am going to print what I have for midterm.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right?
And in the meantime, we can get the other homework to you as soon as we can. Before the
Yes.
12th.
So you want to discuss the homework today, or you want us to just do the chapter on risk and you attempt the homework?
Do the chapter on risk and we attempt the homework.
I agree.
Attempt the homework in class, or you want to do it at home? Which one you want to do?
At home.
I prefer to attempt the homework.
Attempt the
and-
homework at home.
At
No,
home?
I've been having too much problems with the homeworks. Let me, wait, what the homework look like? That's number 6? I think that one was
I have a
easy.
question.
I think that one was easier. Let's discuss the midterm.
I have a question though, for the homework for unit 6, right? I noticed the first one is like a fill in the blank. Can we get a word box?
You could try it, and then when we come, I give you hints.
Okay,
So let's do this. We'll do chapter 8, which shouldn't take us too much time unless we have some long discussions. You can go and do your homework. You can send your homework in. And I'm also going to send you this week the homework for the last chapter.
okay. So you
So-
want us to
Okay,
send this
that's
one
fair.
in to, after we finish doing chapter 8, you're gonna let us do the homework that you sent us and then send it to you today?
Yes.
Okay,
And then through the week, I will send you the homework for unit 7.
okay, I got it.
Okay. And so when we come next week, we will do homework for unit 6. We will go through homework for unit 7, and then we will do unit 9. Which isn't very
Okay.
long. I'm writing it on my thingham now. Unit 6 homework.
Right. Can I get clarification, please? Are we completing an assignment tonight to submit tonight?
You talking about midterm?
No, not
Oh,
midterm. I know
homework,
that's the,
homework. Last week,
Homework.
homework.
Last
Yes.
week's
This is Saturday. This is Saturday.
I agree.
Okay.
I'm just on
Okay.
your mark, get set, go.
All right. So
Get out
when
the
do you,
house.
when do you
I
want to
have
send?
errands, I have errands to run.
Okay. When do you
Right.
want to send me unit 6 homework?
Wednesday.
By
Okay.
the, when is the, no, the
Yeah, we can
fourth
do
is what?
Wednesday. Wednesday
fourth,
sounds good.
Okay, Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday, Unit 6 on Wednesday.
Yeah.
When you gonna send me Unit 7? Thursday?
No,
You gotta send us Unit 7
the
first.
Don't worry.
following Wednesday.
I can't say, I haven't seen what Unit 7 looks like.
Unlike you all, I can send you Unit 7 tonight if I wish.
No. We don't want to stress you. No, take your time.
So when do you want Unit 7?
You could send it to us this week, but it's due the following Wednesday.
Right.
Okay, so it's due like the 10th, not the 10th?
Let's see, it's the 10th.
Yeah. So that means we'll,
Yeah, that's fine.
okay, so that means we'll discuss it on March the 12th.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm only looking forward to get one homework this week.
Yes, Unit 6. Okay.
So next Saturday, we will discuss the homework and we will do Unit 9. And then the following week is the last class. We will discuss Unit 7 homework and we'll do the last class and I'll tell you what's on the exam.
Okay, fair enough.
That sounds good? Okay,
Can you
midterm.
just send out a note with
I
all
will.
these strange dates? Because y'all trying to confuse me now.
Okay, we got it. I got it. I'll send you an email.
Yeah.
I'll send an email. I'll use the same link for today's class. I'll do a reply all and I'll put it in there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Okay, great, thanks.
we're gonna do chapter 8. You gotta spend some extra time, but I understand because if you're like me, through the week, you don't have time to do anything. So Saturday is the only time you have to go and make your errands. So,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
and
That is true.
all right, so let me see how really eager you all are and have things to do. Let's talk about risk. What is risk? Why is it so important? Okay, what happened?
It's important because you don't want anyone trying to do any money laundering or anything like that to your companies or your funds.
Right. But remember now, there are the different types of risk. And an organization has to be aware of all of the risks.
Oh yeah, there's plenty other than KYC. Yes.
So you have inherent risk, that's risk that runs with the business, and then you have residual risk. So when I start from the beginning of the chapter, and then we'll go down and you can stop me anytime if you want to have a discussion, because there are lots of points that you may find quite interesting. So we know what risk means. Risk is, whenever you do any business course, they always talk about do a SWOT analysis. So risk is looking at what poses a threat to your organization. So we could use for this class managing risk. We could use the war that's happening right now. What was the risk to Ukraine? And what was the risk to Russia? I just want to show you this could be done in these things. Go with situation. What's
the risk to Ukraine was their sovereignty, and the risk. Sorry, my dog is barking at.
Miss, put him out, please.
You have a lot to say.
Yes, always.
Probably watching television. Go ahead.
Okay, and the risk to Russia, I would say NATO entering Ukraine, where all of their enemies will be able to spy on them. And they want to spread their empire closer to Europe. And Ukraine would, with them invading Ukraine, would be an entrance into the EU, to try to control the EU.
Mhm. But, okay, so that's a threat from both sides, right? But now you have to look at from the US, the EU, Australia, even the Bahamas put their hand in the pot. How can Ukraine manage this risk? How did it manage it? Or did it manage it? Because the threat was evident.
They would have tried to manage it when they wanted to become a part of NATO.
Right. But becoming a part of NATO, was that sufficient enough to deal with that threat?
Clearly no, because they ain't
Well,
going.
they would have had support. They're not part of NATO yet, eh?
No, they're not.
They still
They're
still
not,
waiting
that-
on the
yeah,
approval
so
for it.
That's why
But
they haven't gotten the support from everybody, because they're
Yeah,
not a part of it.
apparently they're supposed to be getting an answer today, I think.
Oh.
Because he had already reached out to them to give him a confirm answer if he's a part of them or not. So I guess he's trying to figure out what can he really do at this point.
The only thing they could do, him and these people, is try and fight back, because right now they seem to be on their own.
Well, that's what they're doing.
Everybody else just talking, and ain't nobody acting. Like, why wait till the people take over the country before you try and get in there and assist? By then it's too late. You need, I mean,
Well,
sure, we have all
well,
these,
I'm glad,
these
Lolita, I'm
processes
glad
in
that,
place, but
Lolita, I'm glad that they are actually, the people are actually fighting back. Look at Afghanistan. United States was in there for 20 whole years.
yeah.
They let the Taliban huff and puff and blow them down. Within less than 24 hours, they were under Taliban rule. The people didn't stand up and fight. Hopefully, if anything happened to us, we could stand up and fight. Even if we got to throw rocks and bottle, do something. The Ukrainians, they stand it up. I saw where people from living in Finland coming back home to fight. So
Yeah.
at least they're trying to do something. They stand up against the whole world, while NATO and everybody else waiting at the border, because they don't want to they don't want to escalate what's going on.
Mhm. You see that the thing about this is, right, when you look at managing risk, Russia has already planned this. So all of the financial sanctions that they're putting in place does not impact them at all. Who's it going
I was the only person who thought that, because like he knew at the point they asked him, well, why are you there? Do you have ships in this location? He knew what they would have possibly done to him. So the money already moved.
Yes. And some countries in the EU are saying that they will not impose financial sanctions. Why? Because Russia is their source for oil and gas. They're not going to do it. This is not summer. This is the cold time of year. People need these things. And of course, he knows that once he goes to war, he's going to cripple the world. Because as you can see, gas prices will rise. What else will rise?
Yeah, that's why he say
Food prices, everything is gonna skyrocket.
everything
I'm like, Lord, we just trying to get over COVID. And Putin didn't give us a chance to recover from COVID. And then here now, this war, we don't know. Everything is gonna skyrocket and your salaries ain't going nowhere.
No, well, don't even talk about salaries, because that don't come in the equation when it comes to war. You're lucky if you get paid. It depends on the impact. So it's a lot you have to think about.
Right, and that's why a lot of the countries are just standing by, because they have a lot to lose with sanctions against Russia. Hand come, hand go.
Yes. And then you have to figure out from your own small economy, how are your citizens going to survive? How you going to make it? If you side against Russia, what happens? If you side for Russia, what happens? If you side for Ukraine, what happens? And you got to look at the long run. So it comes now down to the next part of risk is, you know what risk is, you know there's risk management, but there's also risk intelligence. The world knew Putin did not hide what he was going to do. That risk was evident. Even though he said, we will have some conversation, I'll wait on you all. Did he wait? No.
No, he did what he had to do.
He had already started giving out passports to the two neighboring countries on the eastern border. They already have Russian passports. They already have that freedom to go between Ukraine and Russia. And then you have to look at what he has already built culturally in Russia. He's already built that one, he is for religion. He is for culture. And the third thing he said was what? The United States humiliated him. So this ain't just about Ukraine. He's bringing out trucks with missiles. He's already taken over Ukraine's nuclear reactor station. He's already taken that over.
Oh, well,
We have no clue what he's going to do next. And even though we're sitting here saying, oh my God, when he finally reached Kiev, what is he going to do? His men are already in Kiev. They're already there. His army doesn't have to reach. His men are there. The question now is, this is the weekend. What happens on Monday? And so even looking here in the Bahamas, we have to manage that risk. And then from the Bahamas, you have to look at the organizations where we work or where we do business. What is the risk with this impending war? We just went through the pandemic. That was a different type of risk. And everything comes now down to intelligence. Who has the knowledge and the experience to go through this? Most of the people who went through World War II are no longer here. Whatever were left, they went in the pandemic. So where a place like we here in the Bahamas, where would we get our risk intelligence from to deal with this now impending war? Where are we going to get it from?
we depended on the US.
Well, the US said, I think it was late yesterday, they'll just wait and see.
Christian, we can't
was
handle the
only-
risk in Black Village. You think we can handle the risk in Ukraine?
That's why, Lolita, we need to send some of our men over there since they so good.
Yeah, they're like fighting.
Yeah, fighting guns. Let them go to the real war.
Miss, y'all ain't have enough young men here now. What men you sending?
The ones in prison.
That's mostly where they come from.
Them same set up there running around with a K-47 shooting up each other.
Because
Send
the
them.
ones we have now already dying out. I don't know.
Well, these are the kind of things you should be thinking about rather than saying you're going to fly to Saudi Arabia. We have real issues. We have real issues.
Because I personally lost like 5 male cousins in the span of 1.5 years, just the gun violence.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And now people are getting killed with stray bullets.
And this was happening during 24-hour lockdowns.
Yeah.
That was Jolene who mentioned about her 5 cousins. I am very, very sorry to hear that, and I extend my most heartfelt condolences to you and your family. That's very, very sad.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, it is. Condolences. So when you look at risk is at 3 levels: governance, infrastructure, and ownership. So risk governance is at the very level. That's the strategic part. So in a company, that's at the board level. So if you go to the Ukraine situation, we're talking about the members of parliament. Then it's the risk infrastructure, looking at the framework that you have in place. From a country level, I don't know what framework we have in place. From a company level, I don't know if our companies are prepared for war. What if they decide now that they're gonna send a missile over to the United States? What are we going to do?
Right.
And then
our biggest risk with all of this, Ms. Archer, is, you know, we can't feed ourselves. That's our biggest risk in all of this, because if the war is pending and the US really gets involved, like, supplies are already scarce.
Mhm.
Okay, Christian, that also just popping off the top of my head. Our close proximity to United States. You have a lot of these countries already have their missiles set at United States. One false calculation and we getting hit.
But I think you should, it depends on where they hit. You still feel the tremors. You're talking about
Right.
Washington.
And the places shift too. So that couple miles may end up take you a little closer to Bimini than you might have thought.
Yeah.
And that creates a tsunami. Or
Yeah.
A tsunami.
Yes.
And we are very low.
Yes. So it's really a lot you have to think about.
Plus our dependency on oil.
Well, we said we were going to Saudi Arabia to get some. Wasn't that in the papers a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, they said they were gonna try to get some oil from Saudi.
Yeah. Years ago they were getting it from South America. Now they're going somewhere else.
What make you think everybody else who with bigger pockets ain't go there too?
Yeah.
Well, obviously we need to start going to
And all the pipelines closing up.
Exactly.
We need to go to Nassau bicycle and get some bicycles and skates and hoverboards.
Listen, I already said yesterday I need a Tico because it was already expensive to fill my car with gas. So imagine if that goes much over $5.
It is already over $5.
Look here, by next week Saturday, we probably will be at $6. Oh, and the next thing, we also, us who are in the financial industry, have to watch out too.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure we deal with some Russians here and there, and they are oligarchs and stuff. And if more sanctions come about, our compliance gonna be hit.
And then there's risk ownership. Who's going to own it? Who's going to monitor it? I guess the ownership part and the monitoring part from a country level now is being done by Fred Mitchell. But from a company side, like you said, a financial sector, where if we have Russian clients, if we have Ukrainian clients, and sanctions are going to be imposed, and I'm sure some of them probably do live here in some of the outer city limits. These are all the things that we have to think about.
Yeah, especially if you might have banked with one of those banks that they impose sanctions with.
Yes. But when they do the sanctions, will just be widespread. The sanction will be any Russian citizen. And then you may have people in Ukraine who cannot leave Ukraine, whose money is other countries around the world. So now they're going to access to their funds. So in any organization, there is a structure for risk. At the very top, there's the board. Then of course you have an audit committee, a risk committee, and then you have what they now call the 3 lines of defense. the front line, the risk management, and then internal and external audit. Depends on your organization. If it is large enough, it will have an internal audit. If it is small, then it's actually outsourced to an external audit firm to look at your risk. Going upwards, the 3 lines of defense identifies the risk, evaluates it, and manages it. The risk committee and the audit committee is where the acceptance and the monitoring takes place. And of course, there is the reporting to the board. So that's going from the bottom up. From the top down, from the board going down to the very first level, which is dealing with the public. The board has to determine what is the risk appetite and what's the framework from which the organization will work. Policies and standards have to be approved by the board after it comes through the risk committee. And then of course, the 3 lines of defense are the ones that carry out the policies of the organization. So let's just make it real now and switch it over now to Ukraine. From our government level, what are their policies when it comes to war? What are they going to do? What should we expect? I have no clue. Is it automatic that once the US joins that we join? That if they need more men, we send men?
I hope not.
Come to think
We
of it,
don't
have
have no
have we
people.
ever been in that have we ever been in this situation? What, our defense force?
think there were some
But why are you saying the US, Christian? I would think you would say Britain before you say the US.
Well, Britain could ask, US could ask. They could ask just for the.
But we're formerly a British colony. I could see the British asking before the US asked.
British are
But
very quiet.
in any event, we don't have no people.
You have people.
You have a few good men, Lolita, a few.
They're the ones we need.
I know, that's why I say, you know, it's not.
We have a few good men, but the point is that we've signed on to all of these conventions, so we really
Exactly.
can't even duck if they ask us, and we want to continue to be a part of the global world. We're going to have to send a few good men, whatever we have.
Whatever
We've done it in the past.
That is true.
Okay, so see, I'm letting y'all apply these things to everyday life. I will read
Yeah,
you.
we have to find out what our obligations are. Like Deshaun said, we sign on to plenty stuff.
Right, so listen to this now. World War II. The Bahamas assumed strategic importance as an anti-submarine and aircraft staging base, and the Providence became an important training ground for air crews during World War II. So we played our part.
Yeah, remember they had the Navy base in Eleuthera? I don't know if that's the same era. And I
Yeah,
think they
they
had
had one in
something
Andros
in
too.
Andros as well.
Yeah, that's still there.
So all of these things you have to think, they'll have to pull these things from history to see what role did we play and see what it is that we can do now. Are we going to give up
My
airport?
grandfather used to tell me stories about during the war when he was small. Because he grew up in like the early 1900s in England.
Ah, okay, okay.
And he would say, well, from his perspective, because he was young, he said, like sometimes, like, because, you know, it was like low shortage of food and stuff like that. Like, he would tell me how they would just be sharing like pieces of like if they could get bread and they would use like, that's why a lot of the meals over there are based around like scrap meat and stuff like that, because it was something that they did then where they would just get scrappings of meats and the liver and stuff like that, and they would make dishes out of. That's why a lot of the popular dishes come from. And he would say how every time his parents signed him up for a new school, every time they would drop him off to school, the school was blown up. So he didn't have school that day. And then they had to go look for another school.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's just so easy to see how these concepts can be applied to a lot of different situations. And it just shows you, even as a company, that planning, that strategic planning is something that should be adopted in most situations. So in any organization, you normally would keep what they call a risk log. And that risk log identifies what are the risks inherent in your business. So on the top of the list, always from a board level, is strategic risk, operational risk, financial risk, compliance risk, and reputational risk. Now you could take risk and put them in different categories. You could have major risk, or sometimes they say inherent risk. You could have other risk, and then you could have unrelated risk. Other risks, other significant risks sometimes can be an inherent, but more a residual risk, which means that it's something that happens afterwards. And then unrelated, which means something that's all encompassing, but it's not directly related to your business. So a major risk in most organizations in the financial sector is credit risk. They have liquidity risk, market risk, operational risk, fiduciary risk. Now you could add that depends on what type of financial work you do. You'll also have AML risk. You can also have governance risk. Other significant risk could be settlement risk. You could have interest rate risk. You could have country risk, transfer risk, technology risk, regulatory risk, reputation risk, and compliance risk. And unrelated would be systemic risk or moral hazard. So each risk has its own definition, and each risk affects a business differently. So the three lines of defense, the first, second, and third line, they're responsible for identifying risk, analyzing it, monitoring it, and controlling it. They're responsible for it. Telling you get it. So companies are part of a group. Their risk management activities is normally done group wide, or they call it enterprise wide. And for each country, they would actually adopt it to the risks that are inherent in the business locally. So you could see over time, as things change, there's been a lot of de-risking, portfolio de-risking. So now you'll see the same thing happening with Russia. You're gonna have sanctions. Then you're gonna have the key political persons who side with Putin. They're gonna now talk about de-risking those persons to put further squeeze on those persons. So everything will be focused on what they call risk governance. How do we manage this risk? How do we mitigate against this risk? And after you mitigate against it, someone has to monitor it and someone has to report. So what do you think the repercussions will be? Depending on how the outcome of the war, what happens in the next week to 2 weeks, with us making a statement that we're siding with Ukraine. What do you think is going to be the backlash to that?
If we decide to go with Ukraine, you're saying?
Say it again. We did make a statement, you know.
I don't know that we have much choice. I think that we are a part of NATO, so we have to side with whatever NATO decides.
Mm-hmm.
And
But-
because we are just a little a dot on the map per se, an important dot, albeit, but just a dot. I think that we would just have to go with whatever the big boys decide.
Yeah, but the way I look at it, it's just so sad that we find ourselves in this type of situation because, I mean, everyone should be looking at it from a human perspective. Really shouldn't matter which gang we in, basically.
Yeah, but see, Lolita, what happened is that you go on and you want to join the wrong gang. And I can't have them people that close to me.
Yeah,
That's
but
what the
it
problem
is-
is right now.
I
Yeah.
understand that, but it shouldn't be. I mean, the ultimate goal is supposed to be peace, so.
Not to hand into no PC thinking about money.
I know.
Oh, this is what we said. In a statement, we said, quote, the invasion of Ukraine by the Russian Federation and led by its president, Vladimir Putin, is wrong, unlawful, and should end and be reversed. We support the statements of the Secretary General of the United Nations. We have also joined with our CARICOM partners in support of a joint statement on this issue.
It's
Mighty-
wrong and should be reversed.
Yes.
How you could reverse it? You don't. Miss, let me go on mute. You don't cost me cuss. What you gonna reverse it? You don't kill up all them people.
The Bahamas
Make
supports
that statement.
Fred,
Man, somebody need to write your speeches for you because that ain't make a bit of sense.
Oh, listen, he goes on. The Bahamas supports the right of self-determination, the inviolability of territory settled within legally defined borders, the seizure of territories based on tendentious interpretations of history should not be the basis for hegemony over other nations and peoples without their consent. He didn't know this man speak a different language, eh? We again called for the immediate cessation of hostilities and for the Russians to withdraw to their borders. Is he serious?
He's funny. He can't be serious.
And I'm saying, as a very, very, very small nation in the realm of things, why we had to be foremost? We couldn't wait? Or we couldn't just do one joint CARICOM thing one time, maybe?
I know,
Next.
right? Not singling ourselves out.
Yes,
You mean putting the bullseye on us?
yes.
We small, we supposed to be in the background. This is our time to utilize the smallness we have where we don't show up on the map.
But we are. Some of these words, I don't know what they mean.
And by the time you say Google Translate them, they mean something else.
no, because by the time I don't have to translate that, I done extra mad with you. So who tell you talk to me?
I don't understand. I don't understand his last sentence. The words are just too.
That remind me of this manual I read.
Okay. Tendentious. It means expressing or intending to promote a particular cause or point of view, especially a controversial one. So the word is used, a tendentious reading of history. So let me know what he said. The seizure of territories based on tendentious interpretations of history. Oh, he took that straight from the dictionary.
My boy was being commercial.
Tendentation means interpretation of history. So Seizure of territories based on tendencies, interpretations of histories should not be the basis for hegemony over other nations and peoples without their consent. I know
What is
people must,
hegemony?
oh, I gotta look that one up. Let me see.
Yes, Google that for me, please.
Hegemony over other nations. So let's see what that one means. Because these are new words, not words people use every day. Hegemony. Hegemony means leadership or dominance. That's what that means. So his last sentence means that the seizure of territories based on interpretations of history should not be the basis for dominating other nations and peoples without their consent. That's what war means. Isn't war means taking without consent?
But who give you consent to dominate them?
Nobody. This doesn't make any
That makes no sense.
None whatsoever. Anyhow, let's look at my flow chart on risk assessment. Identifying your risk is the first step. So I use money laundering as an example. Identifying the money laundering risk facing the company, given its customer, product and services profile, and having regard to available information, including published typologies. 2 is risk mitigation, identifying and applying measures effectively to mitigate the material risk emerging from the assessment. Monitoring. You have to have the information systems, and you have to keep up to date with changes to the risk profile through changes to the business or threats. And of course,
Christine, which page are you on?
Mine doesn't have any number.
The PDF, you're looking at the PDF file?
No.
Which page? Oh, okay. Because I
You
tried
have
searching on mitigation and I didn't find a word.
You have a chart?
Sorry?
That's assessment with some arrows. It's blue.
That's wrong. Okay, I found it. Sorry. Sorry.
All right. That's all right. And then documentation. That's mean having the policies and procedures in place to effectively give an accountability to the board. So enterprise risk management, like I said, is when you have a group of entities. So what really is enterprise risk management? And enterprise risk management is being able to answer all of the questions within the wheel. At the heart of risk management is culture. And remember, what did I just tell you about Putin at the very beginning? He is hammered in the Russian culture. He's taken them back to Stalin days and brought back their culture. So all of the old organizations that they had, he is actually reinforced those and instill those. Everyone is happy because they're going to church and they can worship. He's a church-going man. And he's brought that sense of religion back to his people. So from an enterprise risk management, culture is at the heart of everything.
Excuse me, sorry, but you're a church-going man and this is what you do?
This is
Like,
strategic.
how does that comprehend? I mean, that's a contradiction in terms right there.
Yeah, but remember now, Ukraine was once a part of Russia. They're still, to him, they're still Russians. They've just lost their way.
Okay.
You have to go into the mind of these people. So around the wheel, you'll see there's coverage, risk appetite, governance and policies, risk data and infrastructure, measurement, evaluation and communication, control environment, response, and stress testing. So under coverage, what are the risks to our business strategy and operations? From a country level, what are the risks to our country based upon what's happening in the world? How much risk are we willing to take? How good are we at overseeing risk-taking? How do we measure, or how do we ensure we have the right information to manage the risk? Like, where are we getting our information from? Of course, you know, it's from the US news, but you also have to listen to other news from around the world. How do we determine the size and scope of the risk and report the results? So what is the risk to us with this war, impending war, besides increasing inflation and gas going up higher? How well do we manage the risk? What are we doing about the risk? Well, of course, Fred has already done his response. And what else can go wrong? And how are the risks interconnected? That's stress testing. So even on a country level, you should conduct risk stress testing. What happens if we can't get supplies from the United States? If China takes the side of Russia, and we have already decided to take the side of NATO, what happens if we cannot get goods from China? What if China just says they're not sending any more goods? What do we do? You didn't think of that, eh? If China is sitting on the side, we know that they will probably most likely support Russia, but they're just sitting and waiting because they too have been hurt by the United States. Anyone watch the interview with Trump?
I didn't watch it. I heard about it.
You heard it.
I didn't hear it. Someone just said he made a comment about that's a good plan or something of the sort. I can't quote exactly what he said, but sound like he was on Putin's side.
Yes, he is. He said if he was sitting in the chair, this would not have gotten to where it is now.
Yeah, because I feel as a part of this that they trying to still prove a point. Because don't forget now, we don't know what would have come out of this case now because all of Trump's kids were subpoenaed to show up to the court appearance.
Mm-hmm.
You never know what implications that might have been. And so I feel as if he's just let him just distract you all for a little bit. Because he had the ability to do that a long time ago.
Yes. So in any
Sorry, I also wanted to make one other comment, Christine. I know you mentioned something about we're getting our information from the US news, but a lot of times the news station within themselves are providing contradictory information. So, I mean, I don't even know where to say to go to get the correct information, but it seems as if depending on which station you watch and where their political alliances are, you get a whole different story to the same situation.
Yes, yes. But I mean, in today's world and with communication just being out there, I don't understand why the news that comes to us is just so biased and limited. Because you can get the Asian news, you can get the news coming from the Middle East, you can get the news coming from Ukraine itself, you can get the news from the EU, you can get the news coming in from England, you can get the news coming from Australia. But the view and the news that they give us is so myopic, you really can't get a sense or have a sensible discussion. And that's why people who call in on the talk shows are always just sound so confused. Because they have a warped sense of what's happening in the world and why it is happening. And then when you have someone make a statement like this, who is a minister, who has been in foreign affairs all his life, what does it mean? To a typical man on the street, he doesn't know what that means. The seizure of territories based on tendencies interpretations of history should not be the basis for hegemony over other nations and peoples without their consent. What does that mean?
Miss Archer, you're too funny.
But what does it mean? You're speaking on behalf of us as a people. What does that mean? The Bahamas supports the right of self-determination, the inviolability of territories settled within legally defined borders. What are you trying to say in English? I don't know. And that's why most people on Friday said, we don't know what he's talking about. What does he mean? He's not speaking for us.
Like they say, break it down for the common man.
Yes, it should be in. And so if I was going to interpret this now from English to Russian, what is he saying? What is he saying? Anyhow, let's move on. Corporate governance. The company always have two organs, you know that. They have the shareholders and they have the directors. And in very large companies, you can actually see that division between the two. The directors, of course, they have fiduciary duty. You learned that last class. The shareholder doesn't have such duties. So the board has that supervisory role within its powers being delegated to executive management. The shareholders on the other side, they're looking for capital growth and income and ensuring that the board has the right composition. So that's the key for any organization as a part of corporate governance, is that you have the right people sitting on the board. And the composition of the board is important in terms of growing that business, because they're the ones who are going to be giving the strategy to the board of directors as to where they want the company to go. So internationally, there are bodies that determine how a company should be run. That's corporate governance. They look at how you do business, how the board should be structured, the frequency of meetings, looks at the duties and the responsibility of the directors, what disclosure is required based on the type of company, if it's a public company. And those sort of guidelines, they come from the G20 countries, the OECD principles of corporate governance. And they define corporate governance as a set of relationships between a company's management, its board, its shareholders, and other stakeholders. Corporate governance also provides the structure through which the objectives of the company are set and the means of attaining those objectives and monitoring performance are determined. So a good corporate governance should provide proper incentives for the board and management to pursue objectives that are in the interests of the company and the shareholders. And it should also facilitate effective monitoring, thereby encouraging firms to use resources more efficiently. And as always, the key from the board level, are we using the resources that we have efficiently? So corporate governance provides the critical underpinning for the relationships, the responsibilities, and the reporting lines for the board, senior management, shareholders, employees, clients, and any other stakeholder of an organization. The stakeholders for whom an effective corporate governance regime operates and benefits are its shareholders, its employees, its investors, any service provider, as we call them, third-party vendors, or the community at large. Because remember now, being a community-sponsored company is one of the key things now in doing business and being recognized, especially as a both public and private company, showing that you're giving back to the community. So at the center of the requirement of good corporate governance are the proper understanding, appreciation, and the practice of the high standard of duty, skill, and care that is expected of your directors and senior management when they're carrying out their duties and responsibilities. And they have to always make sure that they're acting within the law and also international best practice. You find out a lot of things that you do now when it pertains to risk. It's not just what your policies and procedures prescribe, but also what's a part of international best practice, which means going back to the large organizations such as the G20 countries, seeing what principles and guidelines have they set out that you can adopt to your business. So a comprehensive understanding of their responsibilities and accountabilities by directors and senior management, and clear, consistent communication of the process of good corporate governance within an organization to such stakeholders. And those things are paramount to having a good corporate governance regime. So an integral part of the mandate of directors and senior management is, of course, identifying, measuring, monitoring, controlling, and minimizing the risk to your company. And everything when it comes to corporate governance depends on the size, the nature of your business, who your clientele are, and the vulnerabilities of your products and services. That means that you must have internal controls and system and processes in place against threats of money laundering, fraud, collusion, impropriety, and overall legal and regulatory liability. And that's why a lot of firms have code of conduct, code of ethics. Such measurable criteria as the accuracy, reliability, the timeliness, the relevancy, and the thoroughness of an organization risk management system, and the frequency, effectiveness, and productivity with which directors and senior management are able to obtain information regarding these measurements are critical to the soundness of any corporate governance regime. So you'll see in some organizations that the board itself has an overarching corporate governance directive. And that directive lays out what are the standards for directors in performing their functions on the board. So if you are a financial institution or you are a publicly listed company under the Securities Commission, there are corporate governance guidelines that you must follow. And these corporate governance guidelines are best practices that has been accepted worldwide. And corporate governance and risk management go together. Because what you're looking at is you're looking to oversee the operations of your company and at the same time being able to monitor risk and manage it. So the corporate governance guidelines by the central bank and the Securities Commission, they set out the minimum standards that the regulator expects. And it states that based on the premise that the directors are stewards of the organization, responsible for providing overall direction and oversight, and that senior management is responsible for carrying out the day-to-day operations of the organization and implementing an appropriate governance process and control program designed to produce a sound and profitable organization. So whenever there is like an examination or an audit of a company, a review of the board minutes will actually reflect whether or not the company is being run in a sound manner. That means that the corporate governance of that company is effective. So on an annual basis, within 120 days of the end of its calendar year, they have to certify in writing to the inspector that upon the advice and assistance of management, it has assessed and documented the effectiveness of the licensee's corporate governance process and its success in meeting the organization's overall objectives. As a part of the annual certification, the board is required to report any material deficiencies, any weaknesses, any problems that may have been identified in their risk management assessment. And they have to monitor it during the year, along, of course, with any action plans and timelines for remedial action. So what the regulator expects is that the board is aware of every deficiency within the organization, and it actually has a plan with a timeline. The board monitors the overall effectiveness of its corporate governance and risk management process directly or through committees, such as a fiduciary or a trust committee, a risk management committee, or other credit committees. So when you have the time and you take a look under the central bank's website and you look at the corporate governance guidelines, you will see the central bank makes recommendation on various types of committees that a company may wish to, I guess, pull different people from different areas and create a committee that reports to the board. In most organizations, the board committees are approved and a member of the board sits on each one of those committees. So annually, the board has to be able to attest that the company is being operated in a fair and sound manner, and that is meeting its business goals and objectives. So in general, what the board will do is they will assess their overall control environment. They would look at their compliance culture. They'll look at their policies and procedures, their risk management systems, and make sure that they are effective in meeting and protecting the interests of all of its stakeholders, its shareholders, its clients, its third-party vendors, all of the stakeholders. The external auditor has to annually review and assess the methodology followed by the board in analyzing and monitoring the organization's corporate governance process. And the auditor has to report to the board and the inspector on any discrepancies. Now, key, of course, to corporate governance is that duty of confidentiality. And we know that that duty itself is a common law duty, but the Bahamas has it enshrined in the Banks and Trust Companies Regulations Act. There are only 4 exceptions to when you can disclose a client's confidential information. If it is by compulsion of law, such as when you file an STR or you report a matter to the police, or if it's in the public interest, or if it is in the financial institution itself interest, or there is an express or implied consent of the customer to actually provide that information. So that duty of confidentiality is a contractual one, and it is also premised around the express and complied consent in the terms of the banker-customer relationship. So that duty is a fiduciary one, which the banker owes to the customer, and upon which he can be sued for breach of contract for unlawful or unauthorized disclosure of information to a third party. And that third party could be a spouse, a relative, another financial institution, any other unauthorized parties, and it depends on the nature and the scope of the banking relationship. The duty of confidentiality does not apply only to a customer's account information, but it also extends to information relating to a customer's identity, the assets, the liabilities, and financial affairs generally. The Act does allow information to be sent to head office for collation if there's a subsidiary or a branch. It goes to head office and the information is collated. It doesn't include the name of clients. It's just an actual, I guess, they say the word, they call it synthesis, but it's just like taking all of the balance of a particular account, that actual lump sum figure, and transposing it into the head office figures. The Act also allows the governor to provide information on the beneficial ownership of accounts, directors and officers, and the operations of any licensee. The governor also has power to provide information to other domestic regulatory authorities. So that means that the central bank speaks to the Securities Commission, also to the Gaming Board, also to the Insurance Commission. Now, under each exception, the first one under compulsion of law, like I said, is when you file an STR. If you have a garnishee order from the courts, then of course, it's by compulsion of law and the information has to be sent. But in addition to that duty of confidentiality, which has a maximum fine of $25,000 or 2 years in prison or both, there's the data protection. And the Data Protection Act was designed to protect the privacy of personal information on individuals particularly consumers locally and jurisdictionally. So persons collecting and using personal data on individuals, they are required to observe and abide by specific standards of confidentiality in respect of such data, and they are prohibited from transferring personal data of information to other jurisdictions that are less stringent. That duty of confidentiality must be given scope and recognition within the framework of local and international legislative and regulatory standards of money laundering prevention, corporate governance, and customer due diligence. So when it comes to data protection, there is the data controller, there's the data processor, and of course, there's personal data. The data controller, they determine the purposes for which and the manner in which any personal data are or are to be processed. The data processor is the person who processes the personal data on behalf of a data controller, but does not include an employee of a data controller who processes such data in the course of his employment. So a data controller is an ordinary resident, a company incorporated or registered in the Bahamas, or an individual who maintains an office or branch or agency, or they practice in the Bahamas and processes the data in connection with the business establishment. A data control is not established in the Bahamas, but uses equipment in this jurisdiction for processing data that is not restricted to data in transit. So in order to protect the privacy of individuals and achieve the primary objective of the legislation, the data controller must be satisfied of the following principles in relation to the collection, the quality, and the use of personal data. The data should be collected and used fairly and by lawful means. It had to be accurate and kept up to date, has to be kept for specific purposes. It has to be adequate, relevant, and not excessive in relation to the purpose for which it is kept. The data should not be disclosed in a manner that's inconsistent to the purpose for which it is kept. And the data should not be kept for longer than is necessary, except where the data is historical, research, or statistical data. And the data should be kept securely from unauthorized access, alteration, disclosure, destruction, or accidental loss. Be mindful that an individual has a right to access to personal data that is kept on him, except where that personal data is kept for the purposes of preventing, detecting, or investigating offenses, prosecutions, tax collection, or assessment, or if such personal data is prejudicial to the security or maintenance of good order in a prison or detention center. The right of access does not apply to legislation for the protection of individuals against financial loss arising from dishonesty or malpractice, legal professional privilege, matters relating to the protection of the international relations of the country, and statistical research or backup data. The Act also provides an individual with the right of rectification or erasure for personal data that is inaccurate. An individual is also afforded the right to prohibit the processing of personal data for the purposes of direct marketing. So, you know, most persons complained when they were receiving direct marketing calls from banks, not realizing that they had already given their express consent for any related company to the banks who were doing marketing. You recall that? There was a lot of, I guess, pushback from Bahamians. Anyone remember that? No? Yes?
Sorry, I missed that, Christine.
No, I say, if anyone remember that, when clients would have given the express consent for related companies of the banks to actually call them to do marketing. A lot of customers started to complain and push back and saying that they did not consent, not realizing that they had when they sign on to accept the little books from the banks on the terms and conditions.
But they
Oh.
could have withdrawn their consent, correct?
I don't know if any of you did.
I don't know if you could
The
withdraw your
pushback.
consent, but you
The
probably
pushback
could.
was, yes, you can. The pushback
Oh,
was
okay.
withdrawing the consent. Under the Data Protection Act, one can withdraw the use of their personal data for marketing purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And so they may not have, I don't know that they formally said this is a withdrawal of my consent, but the fact that they pushed back should have been sufficient to stop those practices.
Yeah, but some of them who pushed back just decided just to close their accounts. That's what some of them decided to do. So of course that protection can be overridden if it is in the interest of national security, for the purposes of criminal investigations, for the protection of international relations of the country, to prevent injury or damage, any disclosure required by an enactment of law or an enforcement of a court, any disclosure required for the purpose of obtaining legal advice or required as part of legal proceedings, any disclosure made to the data subject concerned or to a person acting on his behalf, and any disclosure made at the request or consent of the data subject or person acting on his behalf. Anyone knows who is the data protection commissioner?
Last time I checked, it was Wright, Mr.
Yes,
Wright.
yes, still is Mr. Michael Wright. So related to the Data Protection Act is the Computer Misuse Act. And under that, there are 6 offenses. And just so you could be familiar with it, I won't go through reading all of these because they only talk about the penalties and unauthorized. But the offenses are 6 offenses. One is the unauthorized access to computer material, access with the intent to commit or facilitate the commission of an offense, unauthorized modification of computer material, unauthorized use or interception of computer service, unauthorized obstruction of use of computer, unauthorized disclosure of access code. So I can leave the rest for you to read. But I want to ask you something. In the Ukraine situation with Russia, they have a lot of computer issues, cyber attacks. So they started out the first day with cyber attacks. Is the Bahamas ready for cyber attacks? Because globally now you have to look out for a lot of scams and phishing. Because that's what a lot of people are going to do. They're going to come and claim that they have funds in accounts and try to say, I need access to it. I'm a Ukrainian and my name is so-and-so, and I need to have access to my funds. That is another risk that we have as a financial sector. Are we ready to deal with such matters on a large scale? Because I think Ukraine has about, what's the population? 40 million? How are we going to deal with that risk of cyber attacks?
Christine, I know my company, that's one of their number one risks, is one of their number one challenges. And they have now any email that come in with transaction, you have to do a call back, because with the client to make sure, because anybody can send an email, because they have had where somebody sat there and got information and came back and tried to do a transaction. And when they did the call back, it wasn't the client, but the client was hacked, and the person sat there and got basically all the information and in turn send another email with instructions. So,
Yeah.
you know, they have where even though you get an email, it doesn't mean it's an email from a client. You have to call them back and let them verify the information that they want done.
Yeah. But they've been having a lot of cyber attacks in Ukraine. And so there is a lot of threat. And I'm just saying each organization where you work, you have to think about what are the threats now to the organization. So one of them is cyber attacks. The other
Do
one
you know
is
the United States is still going through that too? You know, remember it was like, say 2020, they had a lot of cyber attacks, and that's when they was asking for holding them hostage and asking them to pay via crypto.
Yes.
And they're still having it, but it's on a low key. They are not advertising, reporting on a large scale, but they're still having it. And remember, we had here a couple of attacks too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's cyber attacks. That's one of the biggest things that you have to watch for now in the war. And then you're gonna have a lot of refugees. I think they said they had about this morning 120, 140,000 Ukrainians at the border asking to cross over.
To Poland?
So, yeah.
Well, I think Poland already said they were making way because they knew they were coming. So
Yeah.
that's good. At least they're accommodating, because most countries aren't accommodating.
Yeah, because they don't want to get in the middle of it. They don't want to. Yeah. So that's it for us today. I'm going to send your email right now. So you have your dates ready for your various assignments. And this week I would write out the questions for last week's chapter on directives. And we'll go from there. So we're almost at the end. As a matter of fact, you only have 3 more classes.
Ms. Archer, did you confirm whether there was that error? I guess, can you reread? I think it was
It was the last
Joe who
question,
asked
and it
about
was
question number 4.
No, was it 4? Yes, it was 4, and it was question 8.
I need to find where I put the exam. Hold on, let me see if I have it in here with me. If not, I have to look on my.
I think
Oh, but the midterm.
Anybody
The
has it ready
midterm.
available to share?
I have it. I have the midterm. You say question. Which question? 5?
4.
4.
A.
Okay, just hold on.
I'm sorry, I don't have it handy, but I do remember I wondered if that was an error as well.
Let me see if I could share my screen. Hold on. I think I have it. Okay. Oh my. I got all kind of
I have
on
it
it.
handy.
Yeah, because I don't have the blank.
Yeah, I was just trying to send my withdrawal email real quick.
Oh,
So Miss Archer, I sent my withdrawal email.
okay.
So question 4, which one y'all were asking about on question 4?
No, question 4A.
8.
Yeah, I had asked that earlier in the class. I was saying I had changed Roscoe Foods Limited to Coffums because it says advise Roscoe Foods Limited on its liability to Roscoe Foods Limited. In my
No, it should be
response,
to be
I changed
Coffums.
it to Coffum.
Coffums, yes.
Yeah, that's the only way I could have answered the question.
Yes, it is Coffums. It is
Yeah.
Coffums.
Yeah.
It's Coffums. Yeah.
I
You're
have a
right.
question.
Go ahead.
Do you happen to have any specific acts or legislations that you would like to see us reference in it?
You mean in these?
Mm-hmm.
Companies Act or the IBC?
Okay.
Yeah, anyone. Any one of those.
And how long are these responses expected to be?
Not long.
Okay. Not long. And you don't want a regurgitation of the act either, right?
No. You
Okay.
could just put the you could just put the section.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think my
there's no need for
longest response was 5.
Let me see. Yeah, it depends on how you. Yeah, shouldn't be that long, but the other ones are not long. They're short and to the point. Short and to the point. Yeah. So let me send you all this email now. I gotta look for all the emails. I have it at the back here. Yeah. So I'll know what to send and tell you all with the revised dates. Okay, so all those who wish to go shopping now may leave.
I don't wish to go shopping, Christian, but I wish that your success rate is 100% this term and not 85%.
I think listening to the class so far, I don't think no one is getting left behind. I don't think so. So no, you all will be fine. It sounds so. It sounds like I'm gonna have a good crew.
Okay.
Yes, but I mean, you all are consistent. You don't miss classes. You're here. You participate. So sometimes when you write an exam, I can tell when I'm reading it, whether or not you understood it or not. Because once you participate in class, I have an idea that you understand. That's why I try to relate it sometimes to things that are happening like in the presence. So even when you write, even if you use it as an example, I will know that you understand. Because it's all about comprehension.
Mhm.
Okay. So
Yeah,
no,
okay,
I hope I
ma'am.
get 100% this time. I'm aiming for it.
We all are.
Yes, and then looking forward to seeing you all at the award ceremony when you go up to collect your awards. Yes, I am.
We're having a ceremony?
We did this year, last year.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it's my first time.
Yeah. But normally, if COVID wasn't around, we have it every year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, every year. And people look forward to it because it's an accomplishment. Yep. All right, so enjoy the rest of your weekend. Look forward to seeing your next assignment to pop in, which will be due on the 12th. And I will look for the recalls. And we'll go from there. So I'll look for my work on Wednesday for Unit 6.
All right.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So have a good
Thanks,
weekend.
Christian.
Wait, Miss
Same to
Yes.
you.
Archer.
Okay, not
Miss
a problem.
Archer,
Yes.
you said you was going to think about the word box.
No, if you don't want to do number one, you can leave number 1 blank. When we come as a class, I will give you all some hints and we'll go from there. I'll know at the end who got it right.
Okay.
Yeah. You
All
don't have to
right.
hurt your head too much about that one. I'm going to give you all some clues.
Okay.
Right? But work on the other ones.
All right.
Okay. All right. So have a good weekend.
All right, you
You
too.
too. Bye, everyone.
Right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.